Well, talking about Spidey, we'll start there because we're talking about some video game news right now. I want to start with this one. Again, I'd say this is C plus tier, but it's just one of these things where it's one of Dylan's favorite. It's a Reddit thing, but this also guy has like some cred, or this account has some cred for some past scoops and everything. So I'm going to throw some stuff out at you. So supposedly the reveal's going to be this summer, and it's slated for holiday 2021. What do you think about that?
The working date for the Spider-Man release, again, it's a rumor. I still feel like that is a healthy release date, kind of like a year afterwards, right? Because then I don't know. I'm not expecting too many crazy games to be dropping with the PS5, at least in like the early stages. I'm one of those people that doesn't really like getting next gen right at release. I usually try and wait for at least a sale or a bundle. I was mentioning to Shay, man, I missed out on the PS4 Spider-Man. I so want that PS5 Spider-Man. I hope they do it. I hope it's sexy. I hope it looks good. And man,
Well,
I
even
want it.
like, yeah, even if it is that date, like maybe that's what they're planning for, but who knows if that's going to end up being the date the game releases. Look at Last of Us, right? It's supposed to come out in like, when was it? October or November or something like that. Then it got pushed back to May, and then obviously got pushed again because of the circumstance. But like, yeah, even if it is planning for that date, the fact that Last of Us was so far off its mark, and that's on tech that they've been using for years and years, like who knows? Even if they are aiming
Yeah.
for this date with Spider-Man, that's pretty much meaningless. Like right now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
What I wanted to kick to next is because Dylan was talking about this. A part of these rumors are for the landscape that, of course, it's going to be mostly New York, but the idea is to build upon that. So maybe some new kind of districts, stuff like that. Maybe go a little outside New York, but maybe the theme of the game, which is could have something to do with it being holidays, that it's going to be lots of snow. You got daytime, nighttime. They said there's 7 weather cycles, but snow is going to be a big factor, and like even the factor in the mechanics and swinging and whatnot. So that could give a new spin on things. No pun intended. So I think that's great. I love any game that takes place in snow and rain and stuff like that. And I think that's just a smart, nice way to switch up the Spider-Man game as far as like we talked about before. We did a preview a few like months ago, and I think it's 2019. And just like, what do you do with it? I think that's a good idea to just even throw a new coat of paint on it. So I'm all for
Yeah,
that.
I totally agree. Like I remember when I first saw the snow, I guess mechanics, animation, whatever you want to call it, in Red Dead 2, just like at a demo or trailer, whatever it was, and it was just like the most satisfying thing for me. Like, obviously where we are, we usually get like 3 or 4 months of just like tons of snow here, and so I've always had that appreciation. I always like snow levels or snow sequences of games, things like that. So I think that's really cool because I think that could totally affect how the game is played, right? Like the traversal, as you mentioned, in terms of like sliding off things or even just like obscuring where exactly you can swing from. I think that could be really, really interesting. It's a good way to like switch up the game. I guess my question would be, is that gonna be like the whole game? Like obviously it would be weather, it would switch around, but is there always gonna be snow on the ground? And then like what changes is how much it's snowing. I wonder how people would feel about that. I feel like people would want to be able to at least travel through like regular territory or like how it was in PS4. But I guess you could always make the argument you could just go back and play that version of the game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have very similar feelings to you, Dylan, because I like the idea. I think it's really awesome. I feel like we haven't really experienced like a Spider-Man, or at least playing like Spider-Man in a snowy type environment, and like thinking about the factors that would come with that. Like, oh, you can't actually swing on that because you'll just like your web will just slide right off because it's all ice, or you can't climb up that wall because it's just
Yeah.
icy. Like whatever they do with the mechanics, just to add some sort of challenge. I did have a little bit of like a red flag just with the idea, like the thought of it possibly being an entire game snowy, because I feel like, yeah, it is really cool, but I would also just want to be like, man, I kind of just wish it wasn't
Yeah.
snowy right now. I wish I could just be playing regular
Yeah.
Spider-Man, and like, would that force me to turn on my PlayStation 4, and play that version of Spider-Man just to get like a different setting. It is stated that like what was it, 7 different types, so rain in there. So I feel like that red flag shouldn't be too big because I don't think they would do that. I feel like they're smart enough to know that wouldn't be the best idea, because then it would just be like, oh, get Spider-Man 1 if you want to play in the summer, and then get Spider-Man 2 if you want to play in the winter, get Spider-Man 3 if you want to play in space, whatever the fuck
If
they
it
go
was
with this.
a
But
seasonal thing where let's say like the first quarter of the story takes place in the summer, or second, like switches around, like
yeah, yeah.
would that be a good solution, do you think? Because then you might, I don't know, you'd still be limited, or like wherever you'd be in the story. Like, what happens when you beat the main story? Is it just
Yeah.
stay at whatever the weather's like there?
Yeah, my initial thought, especially like reading that article, I think it was mentioned that like the length of time in this game, it's rumored to just be longer than this one. So I don't know top of my head how like what the time length of the first game is, but I'm assuming this one will go over the multiple seasons. And I'm not sure if they go the route of, in the first one, like if you wanted to go night to day, you'd go to like those weather
There's like
stations, and then
Osborn,
you could
like
just change
Norman
that.
Osborn Towers. Or
Yeah.
Harry
So
Osborn.
maybe do something like that. I don't know. I see the positive and negatives of that, because the negatives being it just takes like the realism out of it. Like I think it would be cool depending on like what time of the year you're actually playing, kind of like an Animal Crossing thing, where like the game would be changing. I don't think that would happen. I think it would be a cool idea, but so like if you change it through a menu, obviously it takes away from the realism, but at the same time it gives the user the choice, especially when you're in the end game and it's pretty much just free roaming anyways.
And do you want them to expand the, like, because obviously you have your location on the map, and then you go to like the, what's it called, the raft. You go to the raft temporarily for like a mission. I would kind of be down for them to even expand the map a bit and go like on the other side of the bridges and offer like even just a few neighborhoods or something, just as a little bit different, like just to have something new. Because I feel like if all you changed was the weather, and then obviously they change buildings, and they say in this article you can maybe go inside more buildings, stuff like that. But I'd be kind of down if they even added, just kind of expanded the map a bit too, and give us a little bit more on the outside of the bridges.
Yeah, no, I agree like 100%. I honestly, I should just put this in my prediction. I want there to be like some sort of mission that interacts with the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah,
I don't know
100%,
why. I just want that so
100%.
bad. I think that'd be so sick. It's such like a New York landmark, and I don't know. Even if you're just there for a mission and then you can never go back, I think that.
Yeah, I wonder if they left that
and then,
out of the first game as like a, because they want that to be a cool new thing for the second game, or if they're just like, we don't really have any ideas for it, we'll just leave it for now. But I think they kind of have to, just because you're gonna want people to go to some new areas, and I'm sure you get a trophy that pops when you go to the very top of the torch in her hand, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then like just like mentioning like how they're gonna change the city, I think a smart idea of what they should do. Again, I'm not a pro at this, so whatever they do is probably going to be better what I can imagine, but just have like the skeleton of the first game, like like you have all your landmarks, because all that attention to detail you don't really have to touch upon, because you have like like the Wakandan embassy, you got Doctor Strange place, whatever the fuck that's called, I forget, but yeah, Sanctum. Yeah, thank you. Like you're able to keep that stuff, but just like how you mentioned, able to go into buildings, like really flesh out some of these buildings, maybe like you had those fist towers, maybe have those like completed, and then it's kind of like a fun Easter egg for the people that played the first game, and it's like, oh, I remember being here, and it's cool that it's still sort of like a fist tower, but it's not like a mission right now, like maybe it's just something else.
Weren't a lot of them like construction sites too? Like it'd be cool if those were into
exactly. That's what I was talking about.
If that was developed in like a full building, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously I'm sure they're gonna just have more attention to detail, maybe just more I don't know, like more traffic or something, because I just imagine they're just going to be ramping it up because they have more power to work with, right? Whereas if you had a shit ton of stuff going on in the first game, maybe your PlayStation would be laggy, maybe you're in the subway for like a few more minutes, right, waiting for the world to load. So I'm really excited with the potential.
That idea blows my mind, because I already, when I played that game, was just shocked at how many NPCs there was walking around, how they had like that effect where every window you looked into was like there was a room in there. I think that was like some camera trickery, whatever it was. It looked great. So I can't wait to see like how that even develops further, because I think they already nailed that aspect, and I know it's just gonna get better.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the like interiors, like, because that's very adverse to what we're used to in terms of Spidey and traversal.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I welcome it. I'm excited. Hopefully they fix the boat people too. That'd be nice, because they're a little scary. But yeah, I'm kind of as far as like interiors, even like I didn't get touched upon when you're talking about just building the base out of some of the map. I'm just kind of I'm happy with all that, but I'm not like I'm almost down just for another adventure in that New York. Obviously, it's not gonna be as exciting because you've been there before, but I'm more just about like, okay, what new powers, what's new story, new characters, stuff like that, and just the swinging. I like all those ideas. So, yeah, I'm down for if these are all true. I'm down for all those reports so far. So as far as like just the level design or world design stuff like that, nothing. I didn't see anything and go, oh, that might be even with your guys' snow thing. I do understand that, but then at the same time, if I get bother the snow, I might just go, I'm gonna go play the old game. Yes, it could maybe eventually destroy. Maybe it is just kind of like I thought that with Batman too. When we do the Arkham Knight retro, when the Batmobile, it's great, but sometimes go, oh, there's a bit too much of it. So maybe there is a case, but we'll get into something story point later that I think there may be a time in the story where it's not always winter. I think there's something in the story that kind of, if it's true, points to that it might be over there a month or
and
maybe the
even
whole
with,
story is a year,
just having rain as well, I think will be really interesting. And like that, what excites me even more about those weather effects is because I'm really curious to see how this haptic feedback thing that we've been hearing about in this controller, which like makes it, the way they describe it is that it makes it feel like you can, like you're going through things, like when you're playing, like just the way the controller, I don't know if it's like vibrations or whatnot, but it makes it feels like if you're trudging through mud, it will feel like there's resistance, or if you're in a vehicle, it'll feel like you're driving a vehicle. And so I feel like a lot of people developing games for PS5 might not have the resources or the know-how to like use that tech and actually show off something with it. But I think Insomniac will, and I'm sure Sony will want to push them to try to mess with that stuff as well. And I can't wait to see how that game like feels as well, just going through those different weather effects.
Yeah, that's a really good point because honestly, like every time these new consoles come out, whatever like new gimmick they have, whether it's like the touchpad or something, like I feel like at least within like the first year or so of new games coming out, like they don't really incorporate it too much. Like maybe it's just another button, like, oh yeah, this is how you open your map now, or like, oh, swipe to like change your menu. But like when you get like an actual like Sony like making a game that incorporates the Sony product that they came out with, like I feel like they really emphasize that stuff and they just do it in a really good way that other developers can like follow or just add on or make their own. So I'm that's a really good point, Dylan. I didn't really think about like the possibilities of the usage with this new controller
and
and
even
stuff.
the adaptive
pretty exciting.
triggers with like the different amounts of tension could be really interesting for like web swinging and stuff like that as well. So that really excites me. But yeah, as you said, like when I played Death Stranding, I was shocked at how well that controller was used, because I had never, like, of all the PS4 games I played, that big button in the middle is just like the menu button, and no one does anything with it. And even Death Stranding kind of goes over the top with like the fucking controller crying at me. But I still think that's really cool. That's a huge part of any game that people play, is like you playing it with the controller. So if you can use it in different ways, and like there is some great tech there. We pay like $80-$90 for these fucking controllers. Like let's do some cool stuff with them. And I think Spidey is like the perfect place to do that. And I can't say that the PS4 controller, like I can't say they really took advantage of anything interesting there from what I remember. So who knows if that's even something Insomniac cares about. But it's probably something Sony cares about. Now that they're acquired by Sony, maybe that'll be like, hey, you guys try this out. We're going to teach you how to do this. We're going to give you some engineers to show you how to make it work. I don't know how that would work, but I think that's a cool prospect as well. So.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So here's some juicy things. So I have two kind of juicy parts to this. We'll start with the first one with some story stuff that supposedly the game starts with MJ might be abroad. So that's another point to me we'll get into of why I think you could have different story aspects as far as time. Peter's still training Miles, so Miles is said to be a playable character, which we kind of figured as well as we got that last time. In this game, you apparently will see J. Jonah Jameson in person, and Eddie Brock will be in here. So that's kind of maybe taking away some speculation that Harry Osborn was going to be Venom and whatnot. So Eddie Brock is going to be in this. There's said to be side missions with Mysterio as well, and then also Dr. Connors was mentioned. No like in-game or anything like that, but just there's apparently some dialogue of Peter mentioning that. So what do we think about all that of those characters potentially coming in? I think Mysterio makes sense. They alluded to him last game, and it just felt like not missing, but it just felt like, oh, there's one more big bad that they really got to do. And with it, I'm interested to see that, because they left that cliffhanger with Harry, and we'll see what happens with it. But I like everything I'm hearing. But I do think if MJ is abroad, that could show like maybe the first chunk of the game it is like whatever fall, and she's not there. Then the next chunk is winter, stuff like that. So I think. I think that all makes
When you
sense.
said MJ is abroad, I thought you meant like you're calling her abroad. I'm like, whoa, Travis, come on now.
yeah, it's broad. You see.
Yeah. So just touch upon like the villains quick, because that was the last thing you were talking about. I feel like all like the big
Venom,
Spider-Man
Venom.
villains that we didn't see in the first game, I feel like we're pretty much going to see them in this game. And then if for whatever reason they slip through the cracks, they'll just make it in the next game. Like I don't know. I just feel like, because this is literally the Spider-Man game. Like they're gonna try and get all of these villains in, big or small, similar to like what Arkham games do. Whether they're just, kind of like Taskmaster, Jesus, Taskmaster, where he's just like, he's just like, he just like a really small like side mission. He's not like a big character, but you're throwing in some more lore in there. I feel like they'll be doing that with villains, small or big. But I definitely am just excited at the prospect of Mysterio in there, Dr. Connors, same, like all these iconic villains. I want to see. I want to I just want more of it.
I think Mysterio's a no-brainer. Like as Kirklin said, I think he's kind of the next in line in terms of the biggest Spider-Man villain that we haven't seen. Obviously Doc, I guess no, not Doc Ock. So what I'm thinking of, Green Goblin. Yeah, Green Goblin and Venom are kind of the next two big ones, but they're probably going to be more of a main story guy. But yeah, Mysterio makes a lot of sense in terms of just being in there. He's going to be a lot of fun as well. And he's kind of just a hot commodity right now, coming off of Far From Home and Ultimate Alliance. Like he's kind of popping right now, so it's kind of the time. And then a couple things you said concern me. Like I really want MJ in this game. I liked the relationship, and yes, maybe her missions weren't everyone's favorite. I actually liked those as like a way of breaking them up. They're not great by any means, and I'm sure on a replay through the game they kind of are a slog, but yeah, I think they were a really cool concept. So I'd be kind of bummed if she was gone. As for Norman Osborn, I'd also be super bummed if he wasn't part of the story, because they really alluded to that a lot, and there's a lot of sprinkling of that like throughout the story as well, and not even just the story but the world, in terms of like Oscorp being I don't know, just something that was kind of an impending evil in the world but never really fully touched on. But then like there's a cliffhanger at the end that kind of alludes to that. So I'd be super bummed if we don't see those two characters.
Yeah, if these rumors are true, I don't know about Harry, but Norman is supposed to be in the game. Apparently, people have seen like some like cinematics or whatnot, and everything like that. I think it would be more building, because I think they'll save Green Goblin for the third game. That's what I think they're gonna do. Because you need something. Because if they go with Venom, Mysterio, and Green Goblin, obviously you got your boy Carnage in there. But other than that, I feel like you save goblins, or even just a couple goblins for the third game. I think that's the way to go. I think Venom alone is enough, to be honest. I think Mysterio is like good on that too. Kurt Connors, maybe that leads to Lizard too. So if you got Lizard a subplot in there, I think that's juicy enough to get on. Because there could also be other like the Tombstones, another Kingpin, like other like you could get the Spot, Dylan, maybe. Like I think it's a possibility. So I think that Venom, Mysterio, and maybe like a Lizard is a good enough lineup for the third game as like big time heavies.
I wonder if this second game will bring anyone back. Like Kingpin, we have to assume is in jail, but we all know that usually doesn't last very long. So I wonder if he would pop up in this world again. But like if Fisk wasn't in there, obviously that was a big part of it, is that there's like these Fisk like bad guy outlaws that have these camps. Like who would be that kind of main city evil guy? Like I kind of feel like that would have to be Norman up to no good, kind of controlling some company.
Yeah, it's interesting, because in the first game, right, like you had different sets of those little clans. Like you had the like the Mr. Negative
like,
dudes.
He was a huge character in the first game,
then
and
like
who was that character? Like I wonder if there's any other hidden villains that they're going to bring in and try to make a big deal of as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they'll find a way to kind of just make like it honestly could be like any type of villain. Like it could be Kurt Connors, which just like a bunch of lizard people. Like those are the goons that you're fighting, right? Yeah. Like you're clearing out the sewers in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, like I don't know. I feel like they have a lot of possibilities. Sorry, Travis.
Yeah, and there's also I'm not sure if you remember, Dylan, from the animated series. There's this crime boss named Silvermane. He's obsessed with trying to get young, and he got turned into a baby. Yeah,
the
and that
of time.
Yeah, so there is some other like kind of crime. Yeah, the tablet of time. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully that's not this game. That would fucking roll in my grave. If it's like Spider-Man 2, the tablet of time, I would not be No. So I think there's a few other like crime people they could select. I think Kirkland's right about like lizard people and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Norman and Silvermane, those are two crime bosses, and I think they could also with the crime because also it was DLC, but he could work in Black
Right,
Cat a
I
little
haven't
bit
played
for
the
some
DLC
side
yet,
missions
so.
and whatnot. So very strange. So obviously, if you get Venom, we're gonna get the black suit. There's a rumor that the black suit is gonna be like a button you can turn on and off as a feature in the game. So it might have some enhanced stuff, but maybe like your lower health, something like that. But the rumors going around that you could see a bunch of suits grayed out. You could see Spider-Man's Sam Raimi's version, but I don't know if this is every suit in the game or they're going to have every suit from the first game. But either way, whatever the suits are in this game, the rumor in this report is that every suit will have a symbiote version. So
I don't know if I don't know if I have much to add on this point. I think that one seems weird to me. Like that seems like a very strange thing to be included in this leak, which is like very general information, and then this is just like this very specific thing that seems like it's a lot of work for the developers and the art team to like do this because there's a lot of skins in that. Like there's probably at least 30 different costumes. Would you guys say is a fair amount? Yeah. So I don't know. That seems like a very strange like.
But are those
What was
already
that,
made
Travis?
assets though? Those are already made assets though, right? So if you were to just import, maybe you put in a
Yeah.
few new suits, but
Yeah,
if
but
you were to primarily have most of
Yeah,
the
it's
old
not as
suits,
simple
that
though
could
as
be their
clicking a button, right? Like there
switch,
is a lot
right?
of work that has to be put there to like actually make it work. So
There is. Yeah, it's just if they bring over New York, it's just
Mhm.
like I know that obviously that's the base, but if you're same thing,
Yeah.
they're adding snow, they're making it bigger. I see that's one that when I saw it, I was like, that would seem awesome, and that makes complete sense because I just don't think in this game without the symbiote, I don't think they could top the first game. Now it's great if they just say, hey, all those suits from the first game are back. I think people will be happy, but there's still other suits they haven't done. Obviously, like they did the Miles one, they haven't done like a Spider Gwen. Even though I think you could find some story version to put in there, they haven't done the black suit, but some of those they said they're holding for story reasons. And there's a
Mhm.
few other smaller suits they haven't done yet, but I think that like that would be hype if you could get everything like 2099, the Mark like 4 armor, like every single suit from that first game. I would not need any more suits because just like especially if you go like online, you look at like Spider Gwen's anti venom or her symbiote stuff like that. Like there's tons of things they could do. So that's I see. I went the opposite. That I thought that's why it will because that's I think a way to try and top and get people excited because. If you bring all those suits back, I think people will be excited. But it's just, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we've seen this before. You
And
know,
like,
what do you do?
if you add in the symbiote factor, right? Like if every suit can be changed, that's almost like another suit. Like I know it is the same suit,
Yeah.
like base, but it's like another skin, right? If it's all the symbiote
Mhm.
style.
Yeah,
It is
I
an
was just
interesting.
gonna
Oh,
say,
sorry.
like, I think
you can keep going.
I don't know if you're like showing off a trailer to promote this game, and you have like a symbiote spider doing some cool stuff. I don't think people are gonna be like, "Oh wow, look at that! There's a costume from the first game that I can use in symbiote form." I think the cool thing is the fact that you can do the symbiote at all. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if they do the symbiote and it's like a thing that you click on and off, they'd have to make it apply for each costume. But so I guess I'm just curious, like what degree, like would it be a fully new costume for each one? Because that's now then you're essentially doubling however many costumes. And obviously, Travis, you make a good point. Like a lot of it is, importing of some degree from the previous game, which they're already going to have to do, I would assume, if they're going to keep New York, and that would save a lot of development time for them. So I don't know. That's interesting. I'm really curious about like how I'm more curious how the moveset would change if you had this click on click off symbiote version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm honestly I don't know where I stand like like feeling wise on like the fact that the symbiote would be a click on thing for like the entire game. I don't know. I have no strong feelings for or against. I feel like being able to use it would be awesome because Venom's like my favorite character in the Spider-Man series. The symbiote, just all the symbiote stuff just gets me really excited. But at the same time, I feel like
It could be.
I don't know. Again, like
No,
sorry.
I was just gonna
What were you
like
gonna
I
say?
think it'd be cool if that was a big feature of the game where you're flipping between these two modes and like enemies were adapting. Like if they see you're in symbiote, maybe they'll try and throw like Molotovs at you, or maybe they'll try and make a lot of noise or something. And so that could be interesting to like add a lot of replayability in the sense that you have to learn how to play against all these enemies twice, right? Because they'll use different strategies against like which version you're using. But I would kind of like I'd hope that would happen. Like if it was just cosmetic, I'd probably be like, well, I don't know if that was really worth all the work. So
Yeah, no, I have a fairly strong feeling that if it is added, it wouldn't just be a cosmetic thing. Like it really change your sort of play style.
no, go ahead.
Sorry, were you gonna add something? Well, I was gonna transition
Okay, well, I'll
sort
just
of.
throw this point in there
If
quickly.
you
Then,
were
like,
wanna.
what? Here's a crazy idea. Maybe this is way too far out there, but obviously there's a skill tree in the first game, and you can kind of level it however you want. It ultimately doesn't really matter because by the time you hit max level, you get access to everything. So it's more just like the order you want to do things. But what if there was like a arcane style system, like a Dishonored Prey, where whatever you like spec into, like let's say you put more of your points into like the symbiote upgrades, maybe that like makes your character more evil aligned or something like that. And
Oh, don't get me excited.
yeah, like I think
Come
that
on
could
now.
be really interesting. Like, because I thought the skill tree, that was one of my complaints on the first game, is I just didn't feel like there was really any point to it. I think there was more nuance to it, but that could add a
Yeah.
really interesting element where like how you build your character actually affects how maybe how characters react to you, like in terms of how good or evil you are, but then also just like
There's
yeah.
rats in the streets.
And then like even that could add replayability of like, oh, I'm gonna try the game this way or something. I don't know. I kind of doubt they're gonna do something like that,
Man.
but I think there's a lot of room for some interesting mechanics when it comes to the symbiote version,
Jeez.
but I don't really know how they're gonna do it. So anyway,
That's pretty badass, honestly. Like
Yeah.
just giving you the option to be full like piece of shit
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire. and then like actually just be such a cocky little bastard who piano
especially if you have
skills, just
Miles as
maxed.
like a he could be like the good form.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what happens in the story, he's always good, and maybe you end up fighting him, or maybe you don't in the end. Yeah,
The
like
final
that could be
boss.
that could be a cool
Like-
system.
like
Make it happen.
like fighting down.
It's a free idea,
DLC.
Insomniac. It's all yours. Take it.
Damn, that's a pretty good one, honestly.
Yeah.
Were you gonna
I
add
would love that because like that's
Mhm.
very similar to Knights of Old Republic as well. I just think that they're gonna want to tell their own story and they're gonna
Oh,
not
yeah.
want
I
like
agree.
too many choices and everything like that. So that's where I think they won't go that route just so they can be like, okay, this is point A, this is point B, this is story. Also, we've talked about so much, that's why I'm talking about. But if Miles is playable, I think he might be the guy that you're gonna have to play as Miles when Peter goes too far in the story. But that's why I think they want Peter to go too far in the story no matter what. Or maybe Miles. I would love it too if there was some sort of Miles and Peter have to take on Venom at the end together, and you kind of have like a switch on, switch off system, which Arkham has that as well at some point in the game. So I would love that idea of the choices, but I think they won't go that route just for the pure like storytelling version.
I think that's a safe bet. Just what I was gonna mention earlier about like the possible different play style that would come with the symbiote style. You know, just like a mechanic that they'd be adding. And this is kind of a prediction because has anyone here played like the Ultimate Spider-Man game
know.
from back in the day? You could play as
Yeah.
Spider-Man or Venom, and then when you beat the game, you're able to like switch back and forth. I actually have a fairly strong prediction that it's going to be like that with Miles and Peter. I feel like there's going to be certain, like what you just mentioned, Travis, like if you get too far as Peter, then it'll switch to Miles. And then like in certain missions, it'll switch back and forth. Like you're playing, okay, Miles, now it's to you. And then, and then he's off doing whatever, like in the same situation, just from different perspectives. And if that's the case, I feel like because Peter would have his symbiote, like that's his key mechanic. Maybe Miles would have like the invisibility, right? So then like his symbiote mechanic is he can go invisible, or he's got like the electric abilities, and that would be separate from like your gadgets. So you got like your web shooters, you got your just like spider drone, like the other ones that is in your skill set, but then you also have like your just like personal mechanic. Whereas if it's Peter, it's the symbiote. If it's Miles, it's his invisibility or shock. Whatever, however they want to tackle that. I feel like that is I don't know. I feel like that's a possibility that could happen for sure. And the whole switching thing, I feel like that'll definitely happen. That's just my strong prediction.
Yeah,
like
something like that, right? Because if you're gonna hop into the second game, and I think this leak said, well, obviously all of this is just grain of salt sort of thing, but like let's say it is just a few months after the first game, you're gonna have to expect that realistically that Miles is gonna be struggling. He's still gonna be learning how to do everything. Where I think that was really cool in Spider-Man PS4, how when you hopped into the game, like he has been Spider-Man for some time, so you can just get right into it and start doing stuff. But if you get to the point where you're playing a second game with a new character, and that character story-wise has to like learn how to do some of this basic stuff, I think that's a good way to do it, is to have like a very different move set where you're having the invisibility and electricity and stuff where that would, change the move set pretty drastically. And so it kind of works as like a good tutorial way of like, here's an introduction for new players, but for old players who already know how to do everything, you have to learn this like new move set as well. So
that is, yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I
I'd like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else on Spidey before we move on to
No, it was a
some
good
more
discussion. I
PS5
like that.
stuff?
No. Yeah, what?